Imagine this. Nigel Farage is Prime Minister. Reform UK has swept to power. A true right-wing government now rules the land. And guess what? As one of their first acts, they announced that local elections are being cancelled. What would the press say about that? I'm Alex Armstrong and this is GBN Originals. Can you imagine the outrage? Every mainstream outlet would be in full nuclear meltdown. Democracy under attack, they'd scream. A step towards dictatorship. Fascism, they'd wail. Well, journalists would be foaming at the mouth, demanding action, protests, even seeking intervention from international and legal institutions, as they always do. They'd be calling it an outrage and a scandal, a moment that marks the beginning of authoritarian rule in Britain. And yet, here we are. This exact scenario is playing out under a Labour government. And what do we hear? Silence. A few murmurs, some light criticism, but overall support for the government's stance. So where's the outrage? Where are the screaming headlines? Where is the fury? If Farage had done it, the country would be on fire, wouldn't it? But because it's Labour, they expect us just to accept it. This, in my opinion, is an attack on democracy, pure and simple. Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, has announced a so-called streamlining of local councils. It sounds innocent, doesn't it? Just some tidying up. But let's call it what it really is. An absolute scandal. A calculated move to scrap councils, council elections, and shut voters out of the process. Right when Tory and Labour support is at absolute rock bottom. This is not about efficiency. This is about Labour losing control and rewriting the rules to suit themselves. Elections in 6 county councils, Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex, Surrey, Sussex and Hampshire, are being wiped off the political map. More than 5.7 million people will be stripped of their right to vote this year. 5.7 million! And who are those voters? Well, it turns out they are people in areas where Labour and the Tories are both losing substantial ground. And just like that, their right to vote and their voices, your voices, are silenced. How convenient. This isn't an accident. This is a technical adjustment. This is a government actively preventing people from voting. Ironically, this is all supposedly about devolution, putting power back into the hands of the people. Well, you'd be forgiven for wondering when or where you were asked if this is something you want for your local area. And the question is, where does it stop? If they can do this now, why not later? Why not before a general election? Why not simply decide that voting itself is too inefficient, too inconvenient, too problematic? We need to streamline voting. Well, Nigel Farage has called this out. He branded it third world dictatorship tactics. And he's absolutely right. But where is the Conservative Party? Where are the so-called defenders of democracy? The press, MPs. Why aren't MPs walking out and protest in Parliament? Why aren't opposition leaders taking this to court? Why isn't every journalist in Britain hammering on Downing Street's door demanding answers? Well, we know exactly why. Because when the left does it, it's so-called progress. When the left does it, it's for the greater good. And when the left does it, we're told it's about modernisation, efficiency. It's never about the fact that their support is collapsing. It's never about the fact that they're scared of losing. It's never about the fact that they're tampering with democracy itself to hold on to power for longer. This is the same Labour Party that, in my opinion, has been trying to rig elections in their favour for years. They fought desperately against ID laws because they knew they could exploit the loopholes. They gave foreign nationals the right to vote in local elections in Scotland and Wales, knowing full well that these groups would lean towards them. They also packed the House of Lords with all their own people, all while pretending to oppose an unelected upper chamber. Every single time, it's the same strategy. Change the rules when you're losing. And I strongly believe this isn't just about local elections. This is a test run. This is a government seeing how much it can get away with, seeing how much power it can grab before the public finally fights back. If they get away with this now, they're never going to stop. So here's what needs to happen. The British public needs to wake up. This cannot be just another scandal that people sigh over breakfast and then forget about by lunchtime. We need to demand legal action. This is what the left have been doing. We need to use their tactics against them. Reform UK, real conservatives, anyone who claims to be in democracy needs to take a stand. There needs to be protests. I know it's not something we enjoy doing. And there also needs to be media campaigns that hammer home what's happening. The pressure has to be so overwhelming that the government is forced to back down on this disastrous idea. And if you don't say something now, because you might not be one of those impacted by the shutting down of elections, you won't have the right to complain, because if they get away with this, they'll be coming for you next. It will never stop. If elections can be cancelled, then what is a democracy? If a government can simply decide that certain votes no longer matter, then we are no longer a democratic country, in my opinion. If you think this is just about council elections, then you don't understand the gravity of the situation. If we do nothing, we are telling that those in power that they can rewrite the rules whenever it suits them, whenever they're losing. This is it. This is the moment where Britain either stands up for democracy or watches it slip away. So I ask you again, if we wouldn't accept this, and the press and the left wouldn't accept this from a Farage-led government, why the hell should we accept it now? And the answer is simple, we shouldn't. It's time to wake up, Britain. Because if you don't fight for your democracy now, you'll wake up one day and find that it is gone. Anyway, thank you for watching. This has been Alex Armstrong. Don't forget to subscribe to GB News YouTube channel for more news.
At GB News, we believe in the power of free speech. We're not afraid to ask the tough questions, challenge the status quo, and give you a voice. While others silence dissent, we champion the truth. By becoming a GB News member, you're not just supporting free speech, you're defending it. Please consider supporting us today. Together, we'll hold the powerful to account and make sure that your voice is always heard. Simply go to gbnews.com/support and stand with us for what matters most.